Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 18 Strong podcast. Again, coming at you live on Facebook. And we have a very special guest today. We have Mark Loomis, the executive producer of USGA Studio and Event Productions for Fox Sports. Mark's going to tell us a little bit about, what goes into an event that they produce, a golf event, how that's different from some of the other sporting events that we see on TV, and really just want to get his story on how he got into the game of golf. I know he grew up playing the game of golf and how that has led into his career, and I'm sure we'll go in many, many different directions. So let me bring in our special guest here. Mark, welcome to the 18 Strong podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. So first of all, I know that you grew up playing the game of golf, and it sounds like you grew up playing at Wingfoot. Is that right?
It is. I grew up in Mamaroneck, New York, where Wingfoot is. I went to Mamaroneck High School, so it was very, my parents met in New York City, and they loved golf, and they met some people who were members at Wingfoot, and they loved it so much they joined it, and they moved out. They were both working in New York City, and they moved out to Mamaroneck, and off we go. Well, I lived there all growing up.
So this has to be pretty exciting for you guys going back to Wingfoot for the U.S. Open, which is going to be now in September 17th. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really exciting for me. I mean, it's interesting for me. I've been out there some in the last week or two, and I see how great the course looks right now, and it's in shape to host the U.S. Open in 2 weeks, which it was supposed to do. But I hope the same is in September. As long as we have a good summer, it should be great out there, and it's really exciting for me to think about the fact that a place where I grew up, I get to produce the U.S. Open there. It's it's one of the things. It's kind of one of the things that's been hanging out there for the last few years for me. I've kind of always had my eye on it, and I wasn't sure there for a while this year what was going to happen with it, but it looks like we're going to be ready to go there in September.
Yeah, how hard was that, just knowing that everything's kind of up in the air, and what did it look like behind the scenes from your point of view? Did you guys think at first that maybe you weren't going to have it? Were you afraid you weren't going to have it? Were maybe miss out on the opportunity to go back to this place that you love so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all didn't know what we were getting into there back in March. So I think, there was a little bit of trepidation, oh, I wonder if this is going to work out. And then you start counting the days, you start getting into April. Hey, it's not very far until till June. I heard sports was going to originally, I think I heard sports was they were going to try to get back started. Things like Major League Baseball were going to get started in the beginning of June. So I thought, well, maybe this would be on the front end of it. And then it became quickly apparent that we weren't going to be ready in June. So then you start hearing, well, they're going to try to move it, but how do you move it? There were so many things going on in the background that you weren't sure, but I always held out hope, and it sure looks like we're headed in that direction.
Well, I know that I speak for many, many golfers on my side of the TV that we're very excited to see you guys, being able to produce that and do that, and just the guys to get back out in the next couple of weeks. I mean, we have been just craving something on TV. We had the match, and we had the Rory McIlroy match that they put on, and it was fun to watch, but it's just not quite the same as having regular tour golf and especially major championship golf on TV.
And I'd be interested to see if what it's like. I'm really interested to see what it's like over the next few weeks with no fans. I think that'll be the next step, is to, okay, this is real golf, and this is people playing, PGA Tour players, and they're going to have an incredible field at Colonial and going forward. But what is that experience like with no fans?
Do you guys have any idea, or is it still kind of up in the air as to whether there will be fans or won't be fans at the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I think it's still up in the air. I think that's certainly what the USGA is pointing towards, is trying to get people out there. But I think for all of us, the next few weeks of watching what happens, how it happens, the things, we kind of have the advantage of others going first and finding out the good things that they're doing and the things that they could do better. So, yes, I think, I'm sure hoping there'll be some fans out at Wingfoot, but there's no telling. I think there's so many things still up in the air.
Can you take us back a little bit more into your story on, just, you mentioned you grew up playing golf, but where did your golf career lead you or leave you? And, how did you get into the broadcasting game?
Yeah, so, I grew up playing golf. My dad loved golf. My dad played bunch of sports, and quite honestly, when I was growing up, I played all sports too. But as I got older and realized I wasn't the fastest guy on the court or playing, I decided golf might be right for me. So I ended up, when I was probably 14 or 15, really started playing golf more than the other sports. And it led me, I played a bunch in high school and led me to play golf in college. And that was a great experience. Went to Vanderbilt and had a great experience playing golf there. And then when I got out of school, like I said, I loved all sports. Even when I was playing golf in college, I was playing basketball. I was playing whatever I could get my hands on. So when I got out of school, I thought about things that I really wanted to do, and the sports industry was interesting to me. And I eventually ended up working as a runner for ABC Sports back about 6 months after I got out of school. And not just on golf. It was mostly back then I was doing college football and college basketball, some golf. Actually, when I started ABC, they had the three majors. They had the PGA, they had the US Open, and they had the British Open in 1990. So I got not only football, basketball, but I got a great introduction to golf, and they had a great package back then. And so off I went. And I say off I went. It was a long road, but off I went.
Now, I know that you did some extensive work on the British Opens back in the day when you were with ABC. What differences have you seen in the two tournaments that you've now had the experience of working with, working and doing the British Open and the US Open? I'm just curious if there's any major differences. Obviously, the cultures are different. The way that we kind of view the game of golf is different.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is when we did the British Open, and still to this day, even when NBC does it, although they do it, we started to grow when I was at ESPN too, is when we first got over there, it was controlled by the BBC, and we had about 8 or 9 cameras where we were able to supplement what they were doing. So in that regard, it was a little bit constricting in that you had to kind of follow along with what they were doing. For us, when we do the US Open, it's ours to make of it what we will, and then there are other broadcasters around the world who are taking what we are doing. Actually, it's probably good that I did the other first, because I probably have a little bit of sympathy for them, trying to figure out how to kind of to go along with what we're doing. But that was the biggest difference. The actual events themselves, I mean, it's still major championship golf. They're being played on very different golf courses. Actually, the first US Open we did at Chambers Bay. When I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a British Open golf course. It was brown, and it was right on the water, and it just had that feel. Ball was running around on the ground. Whereas the traditional courses like Wingfoot or Oakmont now, have a much different feel than the British Open courses.
Yeah, the event at Chambers Bay, it was such a different event, such a different look. I know that that was your guys' first year of doing it. There were so many different things that the U.S. golf fans, I think, weren't used to seeing. It was a very interesting. Hopefully, we'll get into a little bit of that. I'm curious,
Sure.
how did the whole process of you guys at Fox getting in with the USGA and how did you put this team together? I know when Joe was on the podcast, he talked about how you guys pretty much put a team together from scratch and built out this production. And now, of course, years later, you guys have probably learned so much and are doing things quite a bit differently.
Yeah, when Fox got the USGA package, I was actually working at Major League Baseball Network. I was the executive producer at Major League Baseball Network. I had kind of gotten out of the truck per se and was more on the management side. And but I missed it. I missed doing the big events in golf. So when they got the package, I didn't really know a lot of people at Fox, and I just kind of sat on the sidelines for a few months and was just wondering, I wonder what they're going to do. And then somebody called me one day and said, hey, would you have any interest in doing this? And I said, well, I sure would be interested in talking about it. I don't know if I want to do it, but I'd love to talk about it. So I started talking to Fox, and I was really excited by it. It was an opportunity to start from scratch. Well, you don't get that very often. Usually just somebody says, okay, go do that football game, and you just kind of walk in and you do it like they've always done it. And this was an opportunity to work with the people at Fox, who I was really impressed with how much passion they had to having watched Fox Sports over the years. They had always been innovative. And so I really saw this for me as an opportunity to try to put something together from scratch. Now, that's the good news. The bad news was we had to put it together from scratch. So that was hard to do. I think I got hired in basically January of 2014, and we had a year and a half to get ready for the U.S. Open. And it seemed like plenty of time at the time. In retrospect, it wasn't a lot of time, because usually when someone gets a golf package or a football package or whatever package, somebody else is losing it. So there's a whole group of people who don't have, who are looking for a job, or we'll take that group of people and we'll bring them in with us if they know how to do golf. For us, there wasn't nobody, the NBC lost the USGA package, but they still had golf. So they didn't have a bunch of people who were leading. So we had to find people internally who were interested in golf, who were good at television, who maybe hadn't worked on a ton of golf. Now, so that was kind of the challenge that we had. The good news there is, over time, those people learn how to do golf, and then they bring with them a lot of other ideas from other sports. And so you get a fresh set of eyes. But yeah, when you talk about Chambers Bay, we're walking into a golf course no one had ever seen before. Didn't really play like a U.S. Open golf course. It didn't look like a U.S. Open golf course. We had new people working on it. When I started in January, I was the first person they hired to do this. I was employee number one on Fox Golf. We showed up at Chambers Bay with 850 people. So it's hard for 850 people to get on the same page in one day.
Wow.
So that was kind of the challenge. Would I do it again? 100%. Would I do it a little differently? I'm sure I would, but there was no way to know that. It was just kind of figure it out as you go.
As far as bringing in the guys like Joe and the other announcers, I know Greg Norman was part of that team. How did you guys figure out who was going to be in the booth, or the on-course commentators? Again, kind of starting from scratch, and Joe being a guy that I don't believe had done golf before that, had he?
No, Joe hadn't done golf before, but he was when I got there, and one of the first people they said to me is, "Hey, Joe Buck really wants to do this," and he is Fox Sports, so that was easy. He was in, and then we went around and we tried to get a combination of people who were maybe new voices to the sport, like a Greg Norman. I mean, not new voices, golf TV,
mm-hmm.
and then try to get some people who had a little bit of experience too. Steve Flesh, Brad Faxon had done some TV for Golf Channel before, and so we wanted to be new and a different voice, but we also knew that we couldn't go in there with nobody who had ever done golf on TV before. So and I think the hardest thing for that, the most important thing for a group of announcers, is they have to be kind of a team. And on a team, you need a bunch of different people with a bunch of different, if everyone's the same, that's going to be boring. But they need to work together well. And that just takes time. And so it took us, we went through the first event and we realized, we went through the first year and we said, okay, we need to make some changes going forward. And we made some changes. And then after the second year, we made a couple more changes. Actually, now we are who we are. And I kind of love where we are right now.
After that first week at Chambers Bay, everything's done and settled. I know the USGA got a lot of criticism about the course and things like that. I'm sure being a new broadcast team, there were, you can never please everybody, so I'm sure there were criticisms there. At the end of the week, when you look back, were you kind of like, oh my gosh, what did we get into? Or was it like, you know what, that actually went pretty well, and I know that we're going to grow off of this and just get way, way better?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. So the answer is, it went. I felt really good about what we were able to accomplish, knowing where we had been 18 months before that. But the guy at home doesn't care about that, right? They just want a good broadcast. So, I was proud of what we did. I was proud of where we started, but I knew we had a long way to go. And so I think when we walked out of there, the Senior Open was the next week. It all came pretty fast right after that. And I think from that moment on, so much happened at Chambers Bay that we were able to kind of check off the boxes as we went forward. Hey, we need to fix this. We could be better at this. Hey, you know what? That worked better than I thought it was going to be. Think of the things like we showed up at Chambers Bay, and no one was used to all the tracers on the ball. Having every shot traced. I think people were kind of they were taken back by that originally. But we realized that, hey, you know what? This is something that we should be known for. Like, this is something that people are going to like and get used to it and want more of it. And so that was a check. Okay, let's keep doing that. And then there were other things that we did that we didn't love and we kind of got rid of. So it was all the above. It was an amazing week. I feel like when I think about that week, it feels like 6 months. I mean, it was a crazy week.
I bet it's funny to think that the shot tracer was new technology, and now it's just like commonplace. I'm curious, how has just over the course of those 5-6 years, as far as technology and mobile and streaming, how has that impacted the way that you guys are now looking at new ways to be innovative in your broadcasts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer to that is we're always trying to find things that make the broadcast experience better, so that tracer did. We've tried a lot of things, some that stick, some that don't. We put the mic in the cup at Chambers Bay, and what we realized was we got some great conversations out of it. We thought originally it was just kind of going to be like a guy sliding into second base and the ball falls and you hear a little bit of and it just adds a little bit to the thing. But what you realized was that you've got these incredible conversations that happen on the green that nobody ever hears because you don't have your shotgun mics on the green. So those types of things have happened. On top of that, what has also happened here in the last few months, would be interested to see, is people are trying to figure out how to get sports on TV with all sorts of traveling rules and how many people could be in the same place. And so we're actually at a new interesting place in television, I would say right now, in that people are trying to figure out new ways to produce television. It could be that your tape operators, like for NASCAR right now, the director is at the track, and the tape operators are in a studio in Charlotte, and the announcers are somewhere else. So I mean, that's actually going to be an interesting going forward. Is, do we have new ways, more efficient ways to produce these events?
Yeah, one of the things that we saw on the match in the last couple of weeks with Tiger and Phil and those guys was a lot more of that course, on course interaction, which I think the audience really loves. There aren't any like restrictions on being able to hear caddies talking to players or anything like that, is there?
Not really. I mean, I think the answer is the players have never been used to wearing mics, and I'm not sure they're ever really going to get used to it. Although they might, and they certainly worked in that circumstance. I'm not sure how used to it, how comfortable they'll be. You saw Tom Brady's mic fall off in mid swing. He holed a shot, but it did fall off. If something like that happened in a major, I think all the players would take their mics off for good. So you have to be a little careful as to how that progresses. But I think going forward, things like the match, things like what happened in Seminole the week before that, kind of get people moving in a direction. Okay, how do we get this to, we loved having this audio on the course. How do we just make it better?
Yeah, there's so many instances that I can think of, and I'm sure, I can kind of picture some at Chambers Bay of Jordan Spieth and Michael Greller kind of talking over shots or, that kind of stuff. It's so fascinating to hear them. And even last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever the match was, when Justin Thomas was asking Phil about, him kind of chipping up, not that they would do that in competition, but the shot that he was going to hit was just pretty interesting to hear the thought process that goes through all of their head. What you mentioned that when you showed up to Chambers Bay, you guys had like 850 people. Is that the same kind of scope that it is today, or is it bigger on the production of the team that you guys bring? And is it like that just for the U.S. Open? I know you guys have, I believe, eight 8 events that you guys televise or are in charge of. What's the difference between some of the scopes on those events?
It varies tremendously. Actually, the U.S. Open is, by far the most we have, and basically it's a few things. There's way more hours. We're on for basically. Actually, at Chambers Bay, we basically did an entire football season worth of hours for in 4 days. I think that was one of the things that kind of caught people by surprise. We were on for over 40 hours, I think.
Oh.
And if you think about it, that's like 11 football games.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, but when we go to the U.S. Open, it's about the same amount of people. We probably are more efficient. We probably do a little bit more than we did back then, but we're a little more efficient at it. You also have to remember there we have featured groups, we have featured holes, we have practice tee stuff that is on the digital side. So we need a big group there. The Women's Open and the Senior Open are a step down from that. It's probably more in the 200 to 300 type area, just because the amount of hours are a lot less. And then we go all the way down to 2-day events like the US Junior and the Girls Junior, which we're actually not doing this year. But if those events will probably have more like 100 people. So that's actually one of the interesting things about what we do is we do 8 events, and all 8, well, not all 8, but they're all different. It's always a different group of people. It's a different venue every year. Sometimes we're just doing the semifinals and the finals. Senior Women's Open we started a couple years ago. We're just doing the weekend. Then we go all the way to the U.S. Open where we're covering the whole thing. So it's a lot of different things, of the types of events in a short amount of time in a basically Memorial Day to Labor Day most years, not this year.
Something that really struck me just really thinking about the broadcast, but then even getting to talk to Joe a little bit about it, was just how different it is to do golf compared to the other sports that you kind of started out with. And like you said, like this event you're on for 40 hours as opposed to, maybe 2 or 3 hours, where in most cases cameras are stationary in a lot of those different events, different sports. But with golf, I mean, do you have somebody, like, is there a cameraman with every group? How many cameras are there kind of structured around? I mean, what does that even look like?
Yeah, so if you're talking about a U.S. Open, basically what we do is we have a camera behind every green. We have a camera in most fairways. We have that tracer camera behind the tee. So if I say we're going to the 4th hole for Rory McIlroy, the 4th tee, our director knows that behind the 4th tee is a camera called 104, and that's the tracer camera behind the 4th tee. So we have cameras all over there, and then we have probably 12 to 15 roving RF cameras that go around as well. So we have at an event like that, we don't have a cameraman with everybody, but we have them all over the golf course, and there's really no shot we can't cover as that week goes forward. We don't get them all, but we're there to find them. Then you go back to, let's say, the US Junior. We have the semifinals and the championship match, and for that you really only need 4 or 5 cameras behind the greens because they can hopscotch because they're concentrated on a small part of the golf course, and then 4 or 5 handhelds in the fairway, basically 1 for each player. And next thing you know, you've got the whole thing covered. So it's very different depending on what we're doing and where we are.
What would you say are some of the advantages, both advantages and disadvantages, of you coming from not growing up and kind of like getting your ranks in just the golf world or golf production, but being able to be in baseball, basketball, football? What advantages and disadvantages did that have as you moved into golf?
I don't think there are any disadvantages. I think the only disadvantage would have been if I didn't have a golf background, if I didn't know golf well. I think it's one of the things that's really helped me. When I first started in this business and worked at ABC, I did everything. I did football, I did basketball, I went to Slovenia for ski jumping. I went everywhere because they used to do Wide World of Sports, and it gives you a really good perspective on how people do things in other sports. And when you get to golf, when I eventually got to produce golf, and in fact, it was the last thing I got to produce. I produced college football and college basketball before I produced golf. I I brought with me ideas and things from the other sports, incredible experiences working with other announcers. You know, having done, I did a few BCS national championship games. What did we do there to make that night special? How can we bring that to a U.S. Open? Those are the types of things that were, to me, invaluable. The biggest difference between golf and the other sports is in the other sports there's one ball on one field and it's very contained. In golf, you have the biggest thing. My biggest job is deciding where we're going to be and when and what golf shots to show. Every other sport, you show every shot, you show every play. In golf, you have to decide what you choose, and that's the hard part of golf.
How does that even work when you're in live time? Is there, first of all, is there kind of a delay that we're seeing on our end? And how do you determine, like, I mean, it's almost like you're a conductor of an orchestra, like go here to 4, go look at McElroy here. Is that being directed by yourself, or and how do the guys like Joe in the booth then take that quickly and move on to the different shot that they're seeing? Hopefully that's
Yeah.
correct.
So basically, I guess the best way to say it is you're the conductor of an orchestra, and the musicians better be good, or you're not going to look very good. So basically, what happens is that the people in the background that we have, I have a kind of a coordinating producer, Jesse West, who talks to the spotters on the golf course, gives me an idea of what the hitting orders are. We have a few groups of people in the background that are recording golf shots that so if every golf shot basically can be recorded. And so if I decide, hey, we're going to go, and let's say I have those people bring me 4 options at one time. If I say we're going to go to Tiger Woods live, then they know to record Rory, Dustin, and Ricky Fowler, and then I know once Tiger's done, I better get those in because there are a lot more golf shots coming after that. But then, if Tiger's playing with Phil, I might say, you know what, let's just stay for Phil's shot. But when I do that, then I know that 2 more shots have backed up behind those. So it's a little bit of a give and take of trying to figure out, what the most important shots are, trying to show as many people as you can, but also kind of relishing the big moments. If you just went around and just showed as many golf shots as you could, you'd never get a chance to kind of really relish in a big moment, to set up a big moment. And so you have to be careful that you just don't get so overwhelmed with the amount of golf shots that are sitting there waiting for you that you forget about the big moments.
How physically and mentally exhausted are you at the end of a broadcast day?
Well, you talk about a U.S. Open. I have always said that after a U.S. Open, I've just lost another year on my life. So it's catching up to me. But I think actually it's been interesting. We about a couple of years ago we stopped doing commercials in our USGA events beside the U.S. Open. And so when you actually go for 5 hours at a Women's Open or a Senior Open, and never take a commercial break, and you're always thinking about what you're about to do next, yeah, you're tired. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think part of my off season, so to speak, is I really do try to get myself in better shape and try to kind of be ready for the next year, because it's not easy. Now, I'm sitting in a chair in air conditioning. How about the guys who are out on the golf course with a camera on their shoulder for 5 hours? And we've done Women's Opens in Alabama in June. We were supposed to be in Houston this week for the Women's Open. So as much as I am tired and exhausted, you should feel sorry for them, not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, like sitting here, my heart was starting to beat, my palms were starting to sweat, thinking of all those decisions you're having to make kind of on the fly, telling people to do this and that. I can't imagine. Speaking of kind of you taking some downtime, how's your golf game these days?
Terrible. The harder I work at it, the worse I get. But I think I should have learned a while ago. I am who I am. But I won't accept that. But Mike, I get to play. I played a lot during this, especially late in the day with my son. And as bad as this time has been, there are things that that I've gotten to do, and that all gotten to do, more time with the family and such, that you probably you'll probably look back fondly in some ways, and miss the fact, realize that was really special time. So I have gotten to play a lot of golf here in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, Joe was on here bragging about your son Ben and his golf game. Does Ben take it to you out in there on the course? And how old is
Yeah,
he?
most of the time. So Ben just turned 17 this week. Yeah, he does. He takes it to me most of the time. I get him every once in a while, but we have a great time out there. Joe loves Ben's golf swing, so every once in a while I'll think of it and I'll text Joe every couple months just to not say a word, just text him Ben's golf swing, and he gets jealous. I think we all wish we had 17-year-old's flexibility and back. But yeah, he's good. He loves it. It's been incredible for me. Just like I spent a ton of time with my dad playing golf and enjoying that with him, I've gotten to do the same with Ben. So that's been really fun.
Is he pursuing a golf career into college? Is he going to play a high level of golf?
Yeah, I think he wants to play in college. I don't think he doesn't see himself as a pro golfer, and I think that's good. I mean, you never know what's going to happen down the road in terms of how you're going to progress or how you're going to be good. But I think it's not like I'm throwing my eggs in this basket. No, he's just he's just a regular kid who's good at golf.
Tell me, if you don't mind, a little bit about Wingfoot, the course. As you being somebody who grew up there, you've seen it many times. Now you're going to be, producing a U.S. Open there. What can we as the fans kind of expect out of this golf course? I've never personally seen it or, really looked up the visuals of it yet, which I'm really excited to see. I've heard so many incredible things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about the U.S. Open is kind of every year. Almost every year, we kind of feel like we have to introduce and show people, hey, tell people why this golf course is great. That was actually what was interesting last year about Pebble, is we didn't have to do that. People know Pebble Beach, and so we didn't have to spend the time introducing them to them. Wingfoot is a big, hard golf course. It's got narrow fairways, heavy rough. The last two winners of the U.S. Open, I mean, everyone's over par. It's still, I think, 5 over 1 in 2006, and Hale Irwin won at +7, and it is a hard golf course. And I've just been out there this week. The fairways are narrow, the rough is thick, and the greens are tough. They're you better drive it in the fairway, and you better be a good putter because it is a hard golf course for sure. And I think it doesn't have kind of the breathtaking, memorable holes that a Pebble Beach has. It's a little bit in the same vein as an Oakmont, just a big, broad-shouldered, hard golf course. It doesn't have kind of the green speeds and slope that Oakmont has, but it has it's a kind of a mix of I think it's probably it's the greens aren't as hard as Oakmont are, but tee to greens probably a little harder.
Now, when you went out there, are you able to go out and play it, or are you out there more just for business?
No, I'm a member there, so I get to go out and play. We're currently, everybody's out there carrying their own bag right now. It's kind of old school. You feel like you're 15 years old again, and no, it's been great. I guess I was out there yesterday, and I look around for sure and make sure I kind of know what the plan is of what we're planning on doing. But I look around, and when I hit a putt and I misread it, I'm like, oh, I got to remember that when the U.S. Open comes around, because maybe I can tell somebody in their ear how this putt breaks or whatever. But it's a little bit of both, but it's mostly for me right now, a few months away. I'm just out there playing golf.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this: if it was positioned the way the pros are going to play it, you're at your sharpest game that you've ever been. What's the lowest your handicap's ever been?
Scratch.
Okay, so what do you see yourself shooting when it's the way these guys are going to play it in September?
I would have had a hard time any point in my life breaking 80 out there. I know I can't do it right now, but in my even when I was in college and playing every day, the way you have to drive it and the way the greens are set up, the green speed, it would be really hard to break 80 out there. Now, if you add on top of that you're actually playing in a U.S. Open with under most circumstances, thousands and thousands of people watching you, I know I couldn't have broken 80. In fact, I don't even want to think what I would have shot. But I think it's just one of those golf courses that you don't remember specific holes necessarily. Like, oh wow, you remember the fourth hole there was incredible. I remember the sixth hole with the water. Blah, blah, blah. There's no water. There's no out of bounds. There's just big bunkers. Oh, it's very little out of bounds. There's just bunkers, rough. It's just a hard golf course, and eventually it just kind of beats you down. That's just what it does. It never lets up.
Sounds like a U.S. Open course.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So just real quick question back to the broadcasting side of things. I saw that in, I think it was 2005, you got an Emmy for the British Open, the production of the British Open. What qualifies, maybe qualifies isn't the greatest word there, but what is it about a sports broadcast that even is open to win an Emmy? What was it about that event that made it so special to win an award?
Well, that's interesting. Most of the time it's just a great event that people cover well. So, it could just be a Super Bowl that people did a really good job on, memorable plays. I think one of the things is, I would say is that if you go back to the 2005 British Open that we won an Emmy for, Jack Nicklaus should have gotten an Emmy. Most importantly, he doesn't get an Emmy, but he's the reason we won the Emmy. And basically it was actually an interesting story. Arnold Palmer had played his last Masters not far before that. I want to say in 1904, and I just remembered watching him come up the 18th hole. He got stuck. There was a wade up at the green, and we just kind of watched Arnold stand in the 18th fairway for a long time, and it just didn't have any magic to it. But when we were thinking about Jack Nicklaus at the beginning of the week of him coming up St. Andrews, my only message to everybody was like, let's pretend it's going to be the most special moment you've seen in golf in a long time. And if it doesn't end up being that way, we'll figure it out. But I think the reason we probably won an Emmy was because we treated it like it was going to be great. And then Jack made it even better. And basically all we did was we followed him. The announcers didn't say a word for 17 minutes. Everyone just watched. And just watched him go all the way off 17 green and play the 18th hole. He drove it right down the middle. The fans were incredible. He knocked it about 15 feet. Fans went crazy. He knocked it in the hole. He made a birdie. Nobody ever said a word. It was about the most opposite sports broadcast that you've ever seen. Announcers say to me all the time, let me get this straight. You hired me to talk and you want me to be quiet? And I said, well, no. Not exactly, but in that moment, there was nothing they could say that would have made the telecast any better. So the reason we won that was because it was just different than than everybody else's telecast that year. But it was really a magical moment. And what I did learn from that was that every moment is different, and that you have to just you just have to do your best to be ready to adapt to that moment, to be ready for that moment, to make the most of that moment. And it just so happened that saying nothing for 17 minutes while Jack Nicklaus played his last hole in the British Open was magic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of your favorite memories, or maybe even favorite total broadcast from your U.S. Open days, now that you've been doing it for several years?
Let's see, from the U.S. Open, I think last year was really special for us. I think the Pebble was just such a great venue. It wasn't great weather. We thought we were going to have great weather, and the sun really never came out. I wish there would have been a little bit more sun to it. But just having, Gary Woodland's story was so special last year, right? And that was that's a whole other story. But they just kind of one thing after another. The stars kind of align. At the beginning of the week, if somebody told you that Gary Woodland was going to win the U.S. Open, it wouldn't have been like, oh wow, it's going to be one of the most memorable U.S. Opens you ever did. It would have just, but it wouldn't. You thought maybe it'd be Phil, or you thought, maybe it's going to be Rory, whoever, to win that Open. And it could have been Tiger coming back. We could have had we could have had Tiger the next win, but Gary Woodland turned out to be such a special story that I think for me that was great, because I wasn't expecting that. And then next thing you know, we had a great story.
Yeah, that was such a fun one to watch. I'll never forget him chipping on the green, to make that I don't know if it was a par or whatever it was, but yeah, such a fun event to watch there. All right, Mark, I appreciate you coming on. I have a couple questions that we like to finish off every guest with if you're ready for them.
Yeah, you go.
All right, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
Caddyshack. It's my vintage.
Love it. If you could pick a walk-up song to end to the first tee box, what would your walk-up song be?
Well, so I'll give a shout out to Lizzo because she's fun. Truth Hurts would be good, but I think Eminem Lose Yourself would be mine. I think it's a perfect, you got one shot. I think that's a perfect walk-up song.
Definitely. If you could play golf with anyone in the world, could be somebody from the past, somebody from the present, who would it be, and what course would you play, and why would you pick that course?
I think golf's a little different than dinner, right? If you had dinner, you might pick somebody historical or whatever that you want to talk to. But I really, for me, I'd want to play with my son, my dad. And what's interesting? My dad actually, I never got to meet his brother, who he idolized. And I think if I could just get the three of them out on the golf course, I'm very partial to Pinehurst.
Sorry, guys, we got a little bit of a frozen situation here. You there, Mark?
I am now. I lost you there. For a second. I lost you.
Sorry about that.
How far did I get?
You said you have a special connection with Pinehurst. That's the last we saw.
I love Pinehurst. So I love Pinehurst. I think we'd have so much fun though that we'd get on a plane and go to.
All right, we have a little bit of a breakup here. Sorry, guys.
I'm back.
There he is again. All right,
Every time I say Pinehurst.
Yeah, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. You said, or we jump on a plane where?
Go to St. Andrews. We play the old course.
I love it. I love it. Is there one book, possibly a golf book, or one book that's been kind of inspirational to you, either for the game of golf or kind of in your career?
No, I think the book that I really think about a lot, I love Malcolm Gladwell, and I love the book Blink. And I think, really kind of the intuition part of life where you just kind of do what feels right to you, just based on experience and what you've been through before. And you just kind of deep down, this is the right thing to do. I think I would say, of all the books I've ever read, it's the one I kind of think about the most is like, okay, what feels right here? And in producing, man, you have to make a lot of those decisions, and you have no idea if they're the right one or the wrong one until you make them. But it's a good way to think about it.
Excellent. Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. It's been so fun to kind of dig into your story and the story behind Fox and the production of the USGA events. Where's the best way people can either find out more about what Fox is doing or find the broadcast? Obviously, it's going to be is there going to be an app for the U.S. Open that people are going to be able to stream, or is that even part of the Fox events?
Yeah, there's a US Open app for sure, usopen.com. You can go on the USGA website, find out all the information you want. You go to foxsports.com, and they'll know where to find us as well. I mean, we our usual schedule is not the same. Our first event will be the Women's Amateur at the beginning of August, and we'll have that and the US Amateur right behind it, the US Open in September, and then the Women's Open in December. So we have a different schedule this year, but we're really looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And thank you guys for joining us this week on the 18 Strong podcast. We've got more guests, more live interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned to our Facebook page, Instagram page, and we'll let you know what's coming. Take care.